up on the mic, they gon' play it on repeat. Cash 100 milli check, I get paid just to breathe. Kill it 24/7, cause I slay in my sleep. Flames pipe down when I enter in the convo.
Yes, folks, that was Jar Jar.
Wow, that was nothing, DC. But okay, folks, welcome to the MCU's Bleeding Edge tonight. Saturday, November 5th. And we're going to be finally doing our Black Adam review, Bleeding Edge style, as Jeff has so eloquently put in our title here. We'll be talking about the new film that just got dropped by DC end of last month. We're finally getting around to it. Talk a little DC for you guys instead of Marvel and instead of Star Wars and instead of Lord of the Rings and House of Dragons. We're doing a little more comic book history type of deal for you guys. So, of course, we have a phenomenal panel as usual tonight. We, of course, have my lucky co-host, Mr. Jeff S., True Knowledge, in the house. Hello, Jeff. How we doing?
Fabulous. Loving it.
Awesome. We have returning Kyle from, I'm sorry, what was your podcast again, sir?
The Fandom Podcast Network.
The Fandom Podcast Network. Well, welcome, Kyle. How are you doing tonight?
I am doing good. I said my magic words, and hopefully I'm ready to bring some thunder and lightning to the podcast.
Awesome. Thank you. Great to have you. And then we also have coming in, if I say it wrong, I'm sorry, Alon.
Yes, correct.
Okay, Alon. Alon, I'm sorry. Have you been on the Bleeding Edge before? I do not recall seeing you here before.
No, I have not. This is my first time.
This is your first time. Awesome.
Yeah.
And you are from I Finally Watched podcast. And welcome. Thank you for coming on the panel. How are you doing this evening?
I'm doing great. Yeah, I can't wait to talk about this film. So
awesome. Excellent. So tonight we're going to delve a little bit into the history of Black Adam a little bit, just to kind of get your guys' knowledge in there. I thought I'd talk a little bit of the comic book knowledge about this character, and we'll discuss a little bit about how that relates to this film, how you feel if it relates at all to it, and all that kind of good stuff. To start us off, of course, just to give a little bit of history about the film. So, like I said, the film just came out October 26th, a couple weeks ago now, and is directed by Wam Khaled-Serra, who you might recognize as the director of such films as The Shallows, Nonstop, The Commuter, and so forth, and films like that. I think he's a phenomenal director. I absolutely love him. I think he has a great eye. The Shallows is a phenomenal movie. And I was very excited to see him be the director of this. And this is the first time he's directed a superhero-themed film. So I was, looking forward to seeing what he would bring to this, because I think he makes great action films. And to my feelings, my opinion, I feel that he did not let us down. He gave us an action-packed film here. Now, of course, we have this great cast, of course. Of Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. We have Pierce Brosnan, Aldous Hodge, Quintessa, Swindle, Noah Centineo. We also have Sarah Sahai, Mohammed Amir, Marwan Kenzari are the few of the different characters that we see majority throughout the film. Of course, we have Amanda Waller popping up, who's played by Elwood Davis, who is fantastic as well. And this has got a really good cast. So, I'm sure a lot of people going into this film had very high hopes for this film. And in my opinion, I think they didn't let us down. Anyways, so to kind of start off the roundtable, just to kind of, before we get into the lore a little bit, let's go around the panel and just get off your first impressions of the film. What did you think about, say you went just right into the film, you hadn't seen it yet, but you started watching it. What were your first thoughts of, what were you looking for in this film? Starting with you, Alon.
So, I kind of expected DC to kind of, impress us or want to impress their audience, especially since I think apart from maybe James Gunn's Suicide Squad, some of their more like, I don't know whether to call it like the Wallerverse or whatever's like tied to like their cinematic universe, not including the Batman, not including any like the Joker, any of that stuff, but like their cinematic universe stuff has been, in my opinion, a little lackluster. And I think they know it, we know it. So I was just kind of being like, don't let us down, DC. And I think it was really fun. I didn't have any like glaring issues with the acting or the plot or anything like that. Maybe some like more specific things, but as far as like a film you sit down and just to get entertained by, I think it hit pretty high marks for that.
All right, thank you. Same question for you, Kyle. What were your expectations going into Black Adam?
I probably went in with a little bit of, I don't want to say hesitation, but guarded expectations, just because of the mess DC and Warner Brothers has been for the last few years. But I'm also went in saying it's The Rock. If nothing else, I know I'm going to get entertainment out of this, because I have yet to see a Rock movie that I haven't pulled some kind of entertainment out of it. I love the interpretation of the JSA. I thought it had some great moments to it. Was it a perfect film? Not by far, but it's actually probably one of the best things DC has put out in a decent while. I agree with Alon, next to maybe the Suicide Squad. I think it's going to, when it's all said and done, going to play. I kind of felt like it was going to play an interesting piece in the DC history, especially what has happened in just the days after this movie came out with DC. So I'm very curious to see if The Rock does have a franchise on his hands. But I thought it was fun. I enjoyed myself. I think if you had a little bit more knowledge of DC Comics history, you would probably appreciated these things in this movie a little more than if you were coming in as a cold, I have no idea who Black Adam is.
Awesome, thank you. Same question to you, Jeff. What were your thoughts going into the Black Adam? Did you have any expectations, sir?
You know what? I'm trying to think about it. What were my expectations before I went in to see it? You know what? I thought kind of similar to what I guess the same positivity that everybody else has had towards, all right off the bat, towards Black Adam, which is really great to see. I think right now, I'm enjoying this. It's nice to see everybody on the show all in agreement right from jump, right? That we're coming from a positive place here about the film. It's not perfect, right? We all know that. We all saw it, right? You saw it twice, right, Cyber?
Mm-hmm.
There you go. Honestly, I may go see it one more time too before it's out of theaters. But I came into it feeling positive. I mean, whenever The Rock is attached to something, you figure it's like Kyle said, it's going to be at least entertaining. Like it can't be horrible at that point, right? If he's in it, he's at that point as an actor, and obviously he put a lot of his own personal time into making this project happen. Really cared about it, and so at that point, I figured just based off him, if he's really this was something he really cared about, that I can't believe that he would have been okay with some piece of garbage being put out under his name. So I came in, expecting quite a bit, to be honest with you. And again, with DC too, where they're at right now, the timing of where they're at, and hats off to them for hiring James Gunn finally. But I came in with expecting a decent movie, and it was better when I watched it than what I thought it would be. So win-win for me. And I got nothing bad to say about it personally. I mean, again, it wasn't perfect, but for what it was pretty damn good.
Awesome, thank you. All right, so we have the trailers ready, I see. So why don't we throw those up and get a refresher of what Black Adam is about, and then we'll dive into. So if you have those ready, Jeff, we will watch them. Awesome. Excellent. I think those are two really great trailers. I think they really excited a lot of people, gave a lot of people, a good idea of what the series was going to be like, or what the film was going to be like. And let's just go around the panel. Give me your thoughts on the trailers. What did you think about the trailers? Did it excite you? Did it give you hope? Just give me your generalized thoughts on the trailers. Starting with you, Alon.
Yeah, I mean, trailers are just kind of made to get you excited, right? And I've seen plenty of great trailers that turn into pretty shitty movies, honestly. So I don't put 100% of my faith in trailers. Kind of like what Jeff said, and Kyle said, if the Rock's in it, at this level, it should be good. So I was kind of banking on that, and the trailers didn't look bad, right? So they definitely got you excited. I was actually watching them after watching the movie, it's kind of funny how both of the trailers start with ending, like part of the movie, the way it ends. And then I think what's in the movie was like kind of like used as a twist is revealed very plainly in the trailer. So it's almost like an Easter egg for people who haven't seen the trailer. Then you get the twist, but for people who have seen the trailer, it's not a reveal at all. So I found that to be interesting.
Awesome. Excellent. Kyle, your thoughts, sir?
As far as marketing the movie, the trailers do exactly what they needed to do. You're seeing The Rock, you're seeing The Rock in action. You're getting a look at the JSA, which is, I think, a big selling point for a lot of the comic book fans. They wanted to see the JSA. Typical of a comic book movie trailer, though, there's some scenes in the trailer that don't make the film, so that's been a typical issue for me. I've never been a supporter. Don't put a scene in the trailer that's not in the film. It feels like there's kind of false advertising there, but it does what it needs to do. And I mean, I don't think I can think of a movie in a good while that's had a bigger marketing push than Black Adam, between the trailers and just every appearance The Rock made in costume over the last year to hype this movie. It's probably been one of the most advertised films I can remember in a long time. And I think that as far as the trailers go, they do exactly what they need to for Black Adam. And I think it grabs the people's attention who aren't even necessarily fans of the comics. It gives you The Rock, it gives you the action, and that's what's going to bring people to the theaters.
100% agree. Definitely, most definitely. A lot of marketing on this film from the get-go, I feel. And it definitely, you can see it. I mean, it ran all the way up till when it got released the 21st. So it was a lot of marketing for this film. Jeff, same question, sir.
I blame She-Hulk. No, I apologize, folks. Just a little locker room humor there. But no, honestly, I think everybody in the panel already said, some pretty solid stuff on the trailers. I think Kyle really hit it home. For me, I'm not trying to, jump ahead or anything like that and whatnot. Although in the trailers, they basically do flush out, like Alon said, the whole movie. They basically present you the entire plot almost, essentially, in the trailers. They don't hide anything really. I mean, there's a little bit, of twist that you don't get from them, but most of it's all pretty much there. They even show Waller there. You hear Waller's, there and everything and whatnot, which even with that being in the trailer, I still was shocked in the theater when she popped up. I was like, wow, like that, a connection, like, holy fuck. Like this is MCU shit here real quick. You know what I mean? Like this snuck up on me. Like, wow. Like that really impressed me that they actually squeezed her in there like that. Like she brings a presence and a gravity as an actress. I mean, all her work's been really solid. But she's been great in that role. I thought she was one of the consistent things between the two, the two films. Talking like Alon mentioned, the film that Gunn did was excellent. In terms of DC films that have come out, recently, the second Suicide Squad film. But I think that the Justice League, not the Justice League, I'm sorry. What are they? Well, I apologize. What are they called?
The Justice Society.
The Justice Society. Yes. They really, for me, like in the trailers and in the film themselves, I feel like they were almost like they really brought a different element to the film for me. That's what really sold it for me in the theater and outside of the theater. The trailers and in the movie, because I don't know that much about Black Adam. I'm not a huge DC fan. I never read DC comics that much as a kid. I didn't know who Black Adam was until I started hearing about the movie being made. So at that point, going in from that, having that lens with knowledge I have, seeing them done as well as they were, especially Brosnan, what he brought to the film was unbelievable. His scenes were like incredible almost. Again, the legitimacy that he brought, the air of professionality and like weight. Right. I mean, and Hawkman, unbelievable, man. Fuck the trailer. He looks like a goddamn monster. You know what I'm saying? I mean, shit, I kneel on that motherfucker. He's badass. When he jumped out of that freaking plane or whatever you want to call it, that was awesome. So yeah, awesome trailers. MCU level, baby.
Excellent. Thank you. Excellent. So, to kind of give everyone kind of a little bit of the comic book knowledge about Black Adam, let's dive into a little bit about who Black Adam is, kind of a little history, when he was first created and stuff like that. Black Adam, also known as Teth Adam, Theo Adam, was created by Otto Bender and C.C. Beck. Now, these were the two original people that created Black Adam back in December of 1945. That was when he first made his first appearance, which was in the debut issue of Fawcett Comics, The Marvel Family. And that, like I said, that was December 1945. So, I mean, he's been around a really long time. He throughout the ages, he definitely has had a lot of different changes to him over the years, especially in the 70s. 70s was really when he got a really big makeover in the comics themselves to really alter who he was. We find out, if you read the comics, you'll find out that he is, he started out as a villain. He was considered a villain, just like Dr. Sivana, Mr. Mind, who are two of Shazam's arch nemesis. Now, Black Adam is also considered an arch nemesis of Shazam. In DC world, Shazam is also known as Captain Marvel as well. So people can kind of get confused about Captain Marvel from Marvel and Captain Marvel unless you really know that, Captain Marvel is Shazam over in DC. But yeah, he's originally a supervillain, but ends up later down the line with different rights and different artists and creators and stuff like that, he ends up becoming kind of an anti-hero. And that became kind of a line that, in the 90s, the early 2000s and stuff like that, they ended up starting making him more of like this anti-hero that kind of works with Shazam and kind of moves him on and has him do that kind of stuff. And I think it's kind of interesting that they decided to kind of alter his, character and stuff like that over the years and, change him up, because I feel that in the long run, I think it made it better that they made him kind of an anti-hero, because I think it worked well for the film. Because if you went just full out villain, which is, you could tell they didn't do that. They followed the more newer, comic book lines for Black Adam's character in this film. They definitely decided to go with more of the anti-hero. He's done bad things, but at the same time, he's trying to redeem himself. And we see that throughout the film. So I think that, they're doing a pretty good job of incorporating some of that, type of, history from the comics and bringing it into this film. So another question for you guys is, were any of you aware of when Black Adam originated? Did you guys have any comic book knowledge of the character going into the film? Starting with you, Alon.
Not really comic book knowledge, but I remember him being a playable character in Injustice, the video game, and that's kind of where I was introduced to him. So like everything in the game about him, that's the beginning and end of like what I knew about Black Adam. Yeah, so really I was kind of just open for whatever The Rock wants to tell me that he's about. I was like, yeah, okay, whatever.
Awesome, thank you. Kyle, same question, sir.
I went in with actually quite a bit of knowledge on Black Adam. My first ever introduction to Black Adam was the old early 80s Shazam cartoon show that used to be on, where they played him up as the bad guy, basically the dark version of Shazam. But if you go into like the 90s and early 2000s, there was the classic JSA run written by Jeff Johns, where he really redefined Black Adam and has created what is considered the modern version of Black Adam that we have today in the comics, and where The Rock really based his Black Adam off of. And it's what's really fascinating about it is that he really did get a very strong following because he was so well written in that JSA run. He wasn't even trying to redeem himself. He was just trying to do what he thought was right in his own mind by whatever means that were necessary. What's interesting too is how Jeff Johns really wrote him not only a connection to his obviously Shazam, Captain Marvel in the DC universe, but he was able to write a very interesting connection between Hawkman and Black Adam as well. And I thought that was very well done with the whole nth metal thing and the Egyptian connections that Hawkman also has. Mm-hmm. And they really built on that. And over the last about 20 years, Black Adam has been built into a much bigger piece of the DC universe. I know played a big part in the current big Dark Crisis event that DC's has going on in their comics as well. And they really have established Black Adam as a Superman level power threat, whether he's working for good or evil. And that's the thing. Black Adam definitely plays in the shades of gray. And it was very obvious this is where The Rock and the writers of this film really pulled their inspiration from, was starting with that JSA run that Jeff Johns did way back in the day. And of course, Jeff Johns is just topping back into DC Comics here over the next few days. I believe he takes over as one of their main editors once again. So it's going to be very interesting, because I know he has a very good relationship with James Gunn too. So there's going to be a lot more connection between the comics and on the DC side and the films that we're going to see develop from all these relationships that are coming. So hopefully this movie could be, like I said, it could be a jumping on point for a lot of people, and really where we see the direction of DC. As The Rock would say, the hierarchy of power within the DC universe is about to change. So
very true. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I was actually, thank you for mentioning about the Jeff Johns connection, because I did read about that earlier, and how, we all know Jeff Johns. He was basically a part of all the TV shows that were on the CW in the last 10 years. So he has a lot of great knowledge, I feel, and I think that if they keep working with him, they might get to a level that's more of a Kevin Feige level as well, because I think he's a very smart man and has a lot of great knowledge. Jeff, same question to you, sir.
Can you refresh me real quick, Cyber, on the premise of what you were asking again? I apologize.
How much comic book knowledge of Black Adam did you have going into this?
Into the film itself, just what I done when I prepared for that DCEU special we did that one time with Mark Rutledge and William from Geek Gauntlet podcast. Shout out to William and Geek Gauntlet and the team. But just what I gleaned from the couple hours I put in, essentially, reading some of the comics real quick on what is it, Marvel Unlimited or whatever, or is it Marvel Unlimited? I forget.
No, DC has their own one.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Anyway,
its name's changed about 5 different times in the last 3 years.
Yeah.
So if you don't remember it, that's quite all right.
Yeah. No, the ones I found from the comics I found online for free. Let me put it that way. And then the stuff I just garnered online from like your typical like media sites, Wikipedia, whatever, you know what I mean? The wikis and all that, the fandom stuff. Just from what I picked up from there, the basis of like the Shazam relationship and all that and whatnot, and that whole backstory, which, again, and we'll get into this, I'm sure Kyle will probably flush this out too. The fact that they did kind of stray from a comic book standpoint, in terms of like the actual, which, of course you're going to expect that to some degree, right? We know that, Cyber, with Marvel. But, they did stray away from, it'll be interesting to see how they play that out across the span of, the films. But so before we did that special and we actually had to talk about it and break the trailers down and whatnot, very little. I mostly, as a kid and going into my teenagers years or my real collecting period, I mostly just, the only thing I really read DC wise was Batman, Superman, the Justice League stuff. Other than that, I was more interested in like Image and Dark Horse and stuff like that, back then than I was like DC, to be honest with you.
Excellent. Thank you. Yeah. I myself, I wasn't a huge comic reader growing up. I just, with the type of lifestyle that I grew up with and stuff like that, I just didn't really get around to really looking at them. I sporadically read some and stuff like that over the years, and not really didn't know much about Black Adam going into this film myself. And I actually, a lot of it, when I heard it was coming out, I did a lot of research online about it and stuff like that. So I had, I was kind of going in with a blank slate. So I felt that kind of helped with, having not too high of expectations of what the, going from the comic book to the big screen type of deal, where a lot of people have usually, when they're huge, avid comic book readers. So I was kind of happy about that. But after seeing the movie and then going more back into reading more about the comics and looking at the actual comics, I'm actually pretty impressed. All right. So moving on. So now this movie starts off pretty interesting. It gives us kind of a history. We have a voiceover, young man basically giving us voiceover about Kondak. It goes back to 2600 BCE, and we're kind of introduced to this king that is trying to basically rule the world, creating this crown of Sabak, and basically trying to summon basically the demons to Earth to basically help rule the Earth and become like the greatest powerful king. We have a young slave who ends up defying that. And because of his defying nature and him trying to do better for his people, the Wizard Council sees that he is fit to be the next Shazam. So he gets turned to the Sam, and he's able to basically overpower the king and basically stop him from bringing hell to Earth, basically. So that whole beginning sequence, I thought they did it so beautifully. I thought it looked so amazing. I was really pretty impressed with all the, the CGI work they did to make that look like 2600 BCE, that this fictitious area that's supposed to be over. I'm sure it's supposed to be over in the Middle East or Egypt, I should say. Actually, I think it's supposed to be around Egypt, and I thought it looked amazing, and I thought that all the people looked really authentic, like actual that type of time frame and stuff like that. And I thought that the whole beginning sequence was really interesting and a great way to introduce, coming into the present day. Now, what were your guys' thoughts on that beginning sequence? Was there anything that you liked about it? Was there anything you disliked about it? What do you feel how accurately they portrayed it? Was that similar to the comic book history, if you know about the comic book history? And just your thoughts on that beginning intro, kind of getting into the introduction to Black Adam himself, or Teth Adam as he was known at that time. Starting with you, Elaine.
Yeah, so it's okay. It's a lot of information to get in, right? Like a lot of exposition, assuming that people go in not knowing. You have to, when making a film like that, assume that your audience does not know the backstory of your character. So I think they did a really good job in fitting a ton of information in such a kind of visually stimulating way. As far as my knowledge with Kondak.
Yep,
Kondak. Okay. I thought it was supposed to be more like a land lost in time, kind of like, so to see it like modernized in the film was interesting. But yeah, it was kind of like they pulled a lot from like Byzantine and pyramids and stuff like that. Yeah, I thought it was visually cool. So
awesome, thank you. Kyle, same question, sir.
I thought visually they did a very good job of setting the scene and kind of giving you that look. I also think that, considering a lot of people don't know about Black Adam, they did a good job in a condensed way of telling his origin without having it be drug out, which I think is a trend now more in the comic book style movies, where they don't want to have a whole thing that's everything is origin. I think they feel like a lot of people are over that point where it's like, I don't need a whole movie to tell me the origin of a character. Let's get moving with that. I think the only thing that really in that opening sequence that I was kind of like, really, you guys, this is the best you could come up with, is the fact that the material that they have is called Eternium, because all I went to him is, it's like, oh, so is He-Man showing up in this movie? But other than that, I think it set a good visual tone for the film and really was a good way to tell the origin without eating up a half an hour, 45 minutes of your film, just trying to tell an origin story. I like how they went back to it throughout the film and some flashback sequences, and obviously with the twist that happens in the film. But I think for getting the people in, especially the people who are just seeing this movie because, hey, The Rock's in it, I don't know anything about this character, it was a great introduction to get people settled into the film.
Completely agree. Very much so. I mean, I think, yeah, like I was saying before, I didn't know much about it, and I thought it was a good condensed way. And I do think I've noticed a lot of people have said in either reviews or just in comments about films like that, they prefer them condensing an origin story of a character, just like, how Marvel did with Spider-Man. Instead of showing his origin story again after, just seeing it once with Tobey Maguire, then once again with, Andrew Garfield, they decide, okay, he'll just already be Spider-Man for a few months. We'll have it kick it off from there. So I think that is a clever idea, and I think a trend that starting to really catch on that helps to move the story along, but also you do get that information and they do it in a good and collective way. So I completely agree there. Jeff, sir, same question, sir. Your thoughts on that beginning intro to Kondak, learning about a little bit about Shazam and him conquering that king, who happens to be named, I did write that down, Acton. And your thoughts on that, sir? You're muted.
You know how efficient I am with the muting, Cyber. I'm not that good with that shit. But either way, bounce off what you said, Cyber, about Marvel with Spider-Man real quick. I honestly want to. Oh, geez, I apologize. I'm over here using the wrong mouse and shit right now. Oh, so anyways, I just wanted to say that I think that what Marvel did with Spider-Man, I think was something where that was also a timing thing, where they were at in the MCU and the phases and whatnot, and then their plan. You know what I mean? And also it was a Sony thing, where there were a lot of factors that had to do with why they decided to not do the origin story of Spider-Man in the MCU. They threw him right in there. I think they knew what they had planned out, and they wanted that boost. And then Spider-Man just brings this legitimacy immediately. Like, everybody knows his damn origin story. You don't need to flush it out anyway. Everybody knows it. It's not complicated. He got bit by a damn spider. Like, shit, man. He's not a mutant. So, I think that for me, what I thought was cool was the fact that the stuff they left out of the origin story and then showed us and revealed to us later on in the film. If you don't know everything, about Black Adam and whatnot from a comic book standpoint, in the theater in real time when you're watching it and whatnot, and they reveal through Black Adam himself, like he recounts the parts that are left out of that origin story in the beginning, right? That actually, for me, added an interesting twist or an interesting new element, right, to the character, to Black Adam himself, in terms of who he is, right? And try to grasp like his mindset, I guess, right? And where he's at mentally throughout the film. And I think that bouncing off of everything, what everybody's already said about the origin stories right now in general, and this, this swing to try to like keep them short, right? And then how well I guess it boils down to how well you do that, right? At that point, they did a great job with it. They did in the film. I thought it was well done. I think that there's still a place for a straight origin story film. You have to really do it right. And it has to be a certain right kind of character to do it. Like Dr. Doom, I think you could do that with. Like, you could do a Dr. Doom origin story film or a Disney Plus series of Dr. Doom. And if you did that right, that would play. At least to me, but I'm a Dr. Doom fan. Like, I'd love to see that as a fan. I feel like, to me, as a character, as a villain, he's really interesting and layered. And people don't grasp that. Like how the depth of a personality and character he actually is. They've always made him in the Fantastic Four film so simplistic. But no, I think you really have to pull it off with the right character and do it well. The original Captain America film, his origin story was a solid film, but some people find it boring, right? So
100% agree. Yeah, most definitely. I think that some people are going to enjoy it. Some people are not going to like it. Some people are going to be in the middle. And that's just, that's how films go. So that's, nothing wrong with that. All right. Thank you all. Great. All right. So moving on. So now we get to present day Kondak. And I mean, this sequence I thought was really cool how it gets right into it. We're still getting the narration. We get these flying ships coming into Kondak and flying around the city, which we end up finding out is the Intergang. And for those that don't know who the Intergang is, it's basically a crime syndicate that is a part in the DC Comics series. And they are basically armed with this special tech gear that was given to them by basically like these otherworldly creatures, or what as known as new gods, from their planet Apocalypse. So we get this interesting kind of like, it's almost kind of like in the Marvel universe. I feel they're kind of similar to like one of the groups that we're familiar with in the Marvel universe, such as Sword or one of those types of kind of things. They're kind of like that in their own little realm, and they're more evil than these other groups are, but they have their own agenda like a lot of these groups have. So I think that's my kind of take on the Intergang. And it was interesting that we got this take of the Intergang into this movie because I had never heard of them before this film. And so learning about them, I was kind of like, oh, this is cool. This is kind of interesting. I'm glad that they brought these in and gave us some more information into the DC world. So I was glad that they introduced Intergang into this film, and from my understanding, Intergang, it was a big part of Black Adam's comic book runs, and it's even the Shazams, I believe. So I think that's kind of cool that they incorporated them into this film. So like I was saying, we go into the city, we see the Intergang, they're flying ships and stuff like that, and basically we get in there and we get introduced to this archaeologist, Adriana. And she is basically she's kind of hiding out inside this bus that is owned by her brother, who is an electrician. And they're also there with couple other guys that are helping her out at the time. And basically they're trying to sneak her in through Intergang's kind of like, introduction into the city, basically, kind of like gate, as you would call it, kind of like trying to get, like if you were to go to Canada or something like that, to get in like a customs type of deal. And so, basically they are able to get through because her son ends up popping up and causing a stir with one of the guards. And we see him skateboarding, and he's like, we do this every day and this kind of deal. And I think it's really funny, kind of their banter and stuff like that. And the guy's like, oh, and so they end up getting through. She comes out of her hiding spot, and basically they're, kind of explain that they're on their way to try to find the Crown of Sabak. And, they kind of figure, kind of mentioned that they're trying to find the Crown of Sabak so it doesn't fall into the wrong hands, because as we found out at the beginning of the film, basically this can be used to open basically a portal to the underworld of, of the great, DC universe, and bring hell to earth, basically. So they're trying to grab this so it doesn't fall in the wrong hands. So they end up going out into, the desert area of Kondak to try to find this at an area where basically it supposedly last was seen when the king that originally had it made was last seen. So they get to that mountain, and basically they get out and they go searching into the mountain. And at one point, one of the guys disappears. And so the other guy's like, oh, okay, I'll go look for him. And as Adriana is still looking, through the caves and stuff like that, he goes off to try to find him. And at some point, we end up going back outside to the brother. He's like jamming out to a tape that he's listening to in his bus. And all of a sudden, that one guy falls off the top of the mountain and is dead. Then we go back into the cave, the mountain, and the other guy shows back up and says, oh, he said he needed to go outside and get some air, claustrophobic. And so they get into the center of the mountain, and there's like this giant chamber, basically. And you see all these weird writings and hieroglyphics and stuff on the bottom of the floor. And you see some kind of like mountains and stuff like the, rocks and stuff like that. And in the middle of it, there's the crown. And then Adriana goes up and gets on it, jumps over and grabs the crown, gets back down. And that's when all of a sudden, Intergang pops up. And they got their guns and stuff, and they got a point and stuff. And Intergang has her brother and has a gun pointed to his head. And is like, you got to bring it to us, and or we're gonna shoot your brother. You got this many seconds, and like start counting down. And she's like, no, here it is. Goes back and gives them the crown. And basically they're about to kill Adriana, and she's looking down at the ground, and she speaks some words, and then that's when, boom, Black Adam pops up, or Teth Adam, as he's called at this time still. And he's awakened from his chamber. We won't say exactly prison yet, but he's basically awakened, and then he comes out and starts destroying all the Intergang people. And we have this like kind of epic battle and stuff like that. He mentioned some words in Kondak. I'm assuming that whatever the language is there in Kondak, and saying your magic is weak. And he's like taking out all the Interpol people. We see him fly up, and he's like taking them out from all the different places, and they're trying to escape. Some of the things fall and crash down and stuff like that as he's battling them and stuff like that. And basically, they end up back outside, and Adriana or her brother are running to the bus and get in the bus and start driving off. So before we move on past that to more of that action sequence, let's get your guys' thoughts on this beginning sequence. Black Adam coming out, appearing, that kind of intro to Adriana and these three other characters, the introduction of the sun, and just like, how did you feel the pacing was? How did you feel that brought the story? And did you like how fast paced it was, or do you feel it was too fast, or just what were your thoughts on that whole kind of introduction to releasing Black Adam in the mountain? Starting with you, Alon.
Yeah, I mean, the pacing seemed okay with me. I kind of like how you don't know it's her son with the skateboard right away, and it just kind of seems like an accident until you realize that, oh, they've done this before, and that it's kind of a setup against the Intergang, which is cool. I like that tiny reveal. When you mentioned their technology that they got from Apocalypse, which I believe is Darkseid's domain, that was interesting. I didn't know that, so that actually explains like the technology leap and bounds that they have in this movie. As far as them kind of like discovering this tomb thing, I always find it hilarious in films that like it's just so easy to discover an ancient tomb. Like, oh, here it is, and that she can just like read the ancient text so perfectly, like it's just in another language. She doesn't need like some sort of Rosetta Stone or some sort of like key to like translate. She's like, oh yeah, this says blah 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 blah, no problem. And I was like, okay, whatever. But then I think at this point, as okay, now I kind of see what you mean. I guess I could see it like that part dragging a little bit, because at that point you're just waiting for The Rock to kick some ass, and then when he does, I feel like the whole movie from this point, apart from maybe like a few lulls, is just The Rock kicking ass. So yeah,
I can actually grab my cell phone right now and go on StreamYard and walk outside my door and go into a cave like that and transcribe the shit right now within 5 minutes.
Well, I mean that's kind of the point too, because it's like what, thousands of years old, right? Like over 2,000 years old, and it's just like, oh yeah, she's an expert, no problem. She's never seen this before, but she knows it. It's okay.
How come random people aren't going there on their own to like party there? The kids or whatever.
Exactly.
Awesome. All right, thank you. Kyle, same question, sir.
I think this is where the aspect of one of the things with Black Adam, that as fun as it is, this is one of my kind of a little bit pet peeves with the film, is I really do feel that Black Adam, especially early on, really followed a lot of the basic comic book movie tropes. And it was even here. You have your character introductions. I did think the fact that we didn't find out it was her son right away was a right move, but we eventually do find that out and the pieces fit. You've obviously got the aspect of, hey, here's this ancient cave, but this person knows it like the back of her hand. She would be a much more sought out person than even what she was if people knew she had this kind of knowledge. So I think that's, but it's a comic book movie. We roll with it. I think everything up until that point is just, it's world building, world setup, until she says Shazam and releases the Black Adam, Death Adam into the world. I agree with you. I think the most interesting aspect of this is seeing Intergang, and especially considering that their history with Black Adam in the comics, and just how Intergang for a while was actually became a major part of the DC Comics world, and their place in it because of their connections with Dark Side and Apocalypse and the technology they were using. It's interesting that they're using this choice to use Intergang, but it makes sense because they're kind of like this secondary villain that's a threat to the characters we're seeing now, but they're not any kind of threat to Black Adam. So they use Intergang in this film, I think, very well to be a kind of a building threat to what eventually becomes the main threat, and that it's on a totally other level. But Intergang just they work them so they fit in the role very, very well, and I think that's the most important thing, because they're set up as a threat until Black Adam comes along, and then they're just not a threat anymore. It's the only reason why they're a threat is because they're a threat to the people around Black Adam, not to Black Adam himself.
Exactly. Thank you. Yeah, most definitely. Definitely their otherworldly tech does help them later down, as we'll see. It does kind of is a little bit effective in certain circumstances against Black Adam. So I think that definitely shows that, there's definitely potential of seeing Intergang farther down the road in the DC if they're able to keep this, pattern going, with the success of Black Adam. All right. Jeff, sir, same question, sir.
I think that being on the panel in the spot where you've already got people, doing a really great job breaking down, like, for instance, like this, these scenes right here in the film, where we originally get, Teth Adam. I think, it puts me in a place where it's, I almost want to react more, if anything, off of what I'm hearing from, like, Kyle, and from what, Alon. And at that point, I think that for me, wanting to see DC do well, because I do want to see DC. I want to see Warner Brothers, Discovery, whatever. I want to see Gunn come in and, like, kick some ass over there. You know what I mean? Like, I want to see legitimate competition for Marvel. I do. Like, as an MCU fan, not that I'm trying to go MCU style here on a Black Adam review, but I'm just saying you can't. Marvel's is over present, right? There's no way to not mention them right now. They dominate the entire cinematic universe, essentially, almost like they own the movie industry almost. Basically, they set the pace of everything. They're the big dogs. So at that point, there's no way to not bring them up in the conversation if you bring up superhero movies or that tropes or whatever, whatnot. I felt like I don't know. I mean, when there are parts of it that it's not just how easily they're able to go into, like, that cave and know the language and whatnot, and all that, and be able to to bring Teth Adam to life and whatnot. I did not the secondary characters didn't that they had, I guess, for, like, almost like comedic or I don't know, emotional or tethering or something. Didn't do a lot for me. What's her name? The Adriana Tomez, the archaeologist, a resistance fighter, with her son and and Samir and her brother Kareem. Now, obviously, Samir ends up playing a role, across the span of the film. But if they were supposed to be like the comic relief or something like that, or whatever tether they were supposed to be, that's just a trope that, like, I'm kind of tired of. Is this feeling that in these movies that you have to have these, like, side, secondary, third story, story characters somehow to complete these films. You don't have to have them. I don't think it's necessary every time to always have to have everything, have those characters. I don't know if that's a Marvel thing, or like an MCU trope that they borrowed or whatever, or if that's just an overall superhero or movie trope in general that you have to have those characters. Either way, I just want to point that out that would be my one, like, I guess, somewhat negative critique or reflection overall with Black Adam, is just that, like, as the movie continues to go, those characters became less and less interesting to me. The son, Adam, or whatever his name, whatever his name was. The Samir or Kareem, the brother, he was funny, but again, he got played out by the end for me. So
can I
go ahead.
add something here?
Certainly.
So I agree with Jeff. But not so much like Samir and his mom. Like I actually like them. I felt like point their characters were effective on what they wanted to do, but with like the brother, it kind of was there solely for just comedic relief. He didn't serve any other purpose really for just that. And whether you like this kind of I don't know what to call it, new age comedy, but it's almost like if we can make you laugh at cringe, then we're gonna make you laugh at cringe.
Yeah.
And I the MCU does it too, where it's just like, and maybe I'm old now, maybe this is just not my comedy anymore, but I'm just like, this is not funny. Like you're trying to be funny, and I understand, and maybe you'll get a laugh from me like in the moment in the movie theater, but then like thinking back on it, it's like, what the hell did I even laugh at?
To weigh in real quick on that thought process too, I think with the mother and son characters, especially in a film like Black Adam, where your focus character is not necessarily the good guy, you've got to have something that's going to humanitize him somewhat and give him a tie to humanity, and that's where that fits in. And I think it's something that I think Marvel's actually gotten away from it in a good way over the throughout phase 4, but I think where DC is at, they still need to have those kind of characters, because we've got to be able to identify with these characters somewhat as we learn them, especially a character like Black Adam, where people didn't really know what was going on. If you didn't have these characters, and then you especially once you add in the JSA, it just becomes a big power fest, which this movie kind of does in a way anyway. But you've got something there that people can at least relate to a little bit, or at least keep the humanity side going, it instead of it just turning into a battle of these superpowered gods. And I think that's why they're important. I agree. The brother was definitely comic relief. It seems like this is something that all of these shows, whether it's Marvel, whether it's DC, or any other of these type of shows, even The Boys and other things, they go for these little bit of moments like this with these certain characters, and it's like, it's great for in the moment, but then like you settle on, you reflect, and you're like, okay, yeah, just as it stands on its own without being in that movie environment and enjoying the environment, it doesn't have near the impact that it does in that necessary moment.
And I'm not saying don't have levity in your film. Yeah. I'm just saying, like, just you can have comedy, but you can be smart about it too. Like the Batman was not funny. It was never trying to be a funny film, but there were some moments of levity in it that fit what you were watching. It didn't seem out of place like this stuff starts to.
All right, thank you guys. Awesome. All right, so moving on. So basically, as Tep Adam is battling Intergang, he busts through the wall of the mountain. And I'm hearing myself for some reason. And he busts through the wall, and there's two helicopters there. And he basically battles out with the two helicopters. And as he battles those out, he moves on, and we see the brother and sister basically, driving off in their little van and stuff like that. And so as they're driving off, he's kind of like looking in the distance, looking at them as he's battling other things about the Intergang. And then we have that really great montage of very slow motion, him taking out all the different Intergang people. And this sequence I thought was absolutely awesome. I loved how they did it. I loved that it was very slow motion. He did his little things because he was going faster than lightning, basically kind of like the Flash a little bit, and like Superman could do too as well. And he's basically sabotaging all the people with stuff and having bombs and stuff going into them and stuff like that, which I thought was actually funny. I liked it. I liked that. I thought it was some great comedy element to it, that levity as everyone was talking about. And basically they have them all being blown up and killed and stuff like that. And then basically he gets to the point where he's pretty much destroyed everyone. And it shows the brother and sister driving, and they see him and they stop, and he kind of he's there, and they're like, like don't know what to do, and they're like rolling up their windows really fast and stuff like that, and the bus, and he kind of slowly walks over to them, and I'm pretty sure he's kind of levitating as he's going over there, but at one point, like he kind of goes past Adriana's window, and then he kind of moonwalks back a little bit, and he's like kind of staring at them, and and they're like, and then all of a sudden the brother's like, look behind you, and like all of a sudden there's a guy still alive, and he's shooting a bomb at him, which he was shooting a bomb at him that was of that apocalypse technology, and they shoot the thing at him, and he grabs it, and he's like, did he just grab a rocket? And I think that like it's such a great line, and he grabs it, and of course explodes. And because it's that technology, after the explosion, it shows him, he gets up and he's like, puts his hand on the window, and you can see that he actually got damaged from it. And he's like, huh? He's like, that's interesting. And so after that happens, he decides he's just going to go away. He's going to, because he's been damaged. So he goes flying up in the air, and goes back to the brother and sister, and like, I don't think we'll see him again. And they start to drive off, and then all of a sudden, boom, right in front of them, he lands right in the middle of the ground, like unconscious. And so basically they decide to, grab him and take him back to their place. And so we get that great sequence, which was really fun, and I think is absolutely hilarious. And so after that, and it doesn't go back to them again. It actually goes, and we see Amanda Waller for the first time, and Hawkman for the first time. And basically, she pops up on the screen, and we get our first introduction to the JSA, Justice Society of America, which we kind of briefly in a couple of the CW series, we got introduction to the JSA a little bit too. I think this literally, is the best combination of the JSA that I've seen to date. I thought they did a good job of, picking this, crowd out, giving us Hawkman, Dr. Fate, Cyclone, and then of course Atom Smasher, which to me, Atom Smasher felt like basically a clownier version of Ant-Man a little bit. That's how I saw him. He makes me totally think of Ant-Man or Giant Man from the Marvel comic books, when they had that character. And so we get that introduction a little bit. And Amanda Waller and Hawkman are talking, and she's like, basically this otherworldly person has, come back out of his, cave, and that he's a threat to society, and you guys need to go contain him. And he's like, okay, we're on it, and we'll get done. And she's like, oh, so who do you have for your team? And he basically goes through all the people that are going to be a part of the team. So we get introduced to Cyclone, played by Quintessa Swindle, who I thought was pretty decent. I thought she did a pretty good job, and I thought she wasn't too shabby. And then, of course, we get introduced to Atom Smasher himself, played by Noah Centineo, which I thought they had a great cameo there with Henry Winkler playing the original Atom Smasher. Kind of like, I feel that's like an OD to Michael Douglas playing, the original Ant-Man in the Ant-Man film series, him being Hank Pym, and then, of course, Paul Rudd being Scott Lang version. And so we have that great little cameo. He's like, you better take care of my suit. Don't let anything happen to it, which was super hilarious. And then, of course, we get introduced to Dr. Fate, played by the amazing, awesome Pierce Brosnan. Nothing Pierce Brosnan touches is awful. He is pure gold. Anything this man does, I absolutely love. I mean, even to his singing in Mamma Mia's, he is amazing. And he is just a fantastic actor, and I was so psyched to see him play Dr. Fate. I think it was a perfect choice. And it was great to see his introduction, getting to see him touching the helmet, kind of having visions going on. I love the line. He's like, was I staring off a lot? And his driver's like, just for a little bit, sir. And we got that introduction to him as well. And so basically, kind of after talking to Waller and explaining who the team was, we kind of get introduced. We get to see Hawkman's outfit. So that kind of basically introduces Aldous Hodge as Hawkman after he's talked about everyone else. So we've got that great kind of sequence, that introduction to those guys. So let's talk about a little bit about that before moving on. So what was your guys' excuse me. How was your guys' thoughts on this introduction to the JSA? Were you happy to see the JSA in this movie? Were you happy to see these different characters we haven't seen in a live-action adaptation yet? I mean, of course, over the years, we've had Batman several times, Superman several times. We've had The Flash, we've had all these different characters, Superman, of course, but we really haven't seen really much of these characters. I mean, Hawkman, I've seen maybe once, one other time. We've seen Aquaman one other or so time. He was in Smallville. We had him a little bit. We had them, of course, pop up in a few other things, definitely the cartoons like that. But really hadn't seen Cyclone or Atom Smasher or Doctor Fate and anything else until this point. So, what are you guys' thoughts on this introduction to JSA? That kind of that sequence of action that happened there leading up to this point, and just what were your thoughts up to this point? Starting with you, Alon.
Yeah. Before I tell you my thoughts of the JSA, it was an instrumental of Paint It Black by the Rolling Stones that Black Adam was absolutely murdering everyone to, and I thought that was amazing. I don't think that should be looked past. So there's that. As far as the JSA goes, really from like what I knew of them, I did not know about the character Cyclone or Atom Smasher. I knew of Dr. Fate, of course, and I knew of Hawkman. And yeah, you're right. There was a kind of a team assembly in Smallville that fleshed out the JSA pretty well. But apart from that, maybe Stargirl. I don't know. I never saw Stargirl, so I'm not the one to speak on that. But I was very excited to see Hawkman. I think Hawkman and Hawkgirl kind of get shafted a little bit when it comes to live action adaptations, because I love to see them. They have such a cool origin story that I feel like people could really be entertained by in live action. So I'm glad to see one of them. And yeah, you're right. Pierce Brosnan just kicks ass in such an amazing way, even up to his latest Bond. But yeah, no, I was excited about those characters, and actually, I usually don't like Noah Centineo, whatever you call him. I think he has a very like punchable face, but I thought it was really smart of them making him kind of like a bumbling idiot throughout the whole thing, because I was like, okay, I can actually kind of like him now. So, and then Cyclone was amazing. I've never heard of her as a character before. But I just thought of like Storm from the X-Men. But that actress did a really good job of portraying her. So I liked them. They were characters that, and I was worried about that, right? Kind of like what Kyle said is like, when you have all these superpowered people in a movie, you're like, oh, it's just going to be a shit show. But to make each one really like relatable and there's a connection with, I was like, okay, this is cool. They're definitely trying here,
Most definitely. And what were your thoughts on that, the battle sequence there and the slow motion that led up to prior to seeing the JSA? What did you think about that?
I like that. I think that's where like the levity comes in, where you can tell The Rock, or not him, but you can tell Black Adam was having fun with it. And the flying up and being like, oh, we're never going to see him again, and him crashing back down, I think that goes with everything that was happening up till that point. So I really enjoyed that whole thing.
Awesome. Thank you. Kyle, same question, sir.
So let me address the fight scene first, because I thought it was well done, but I think it's also an example of one of the problems that DC has right now, is because we've gotten extremely exposed to this kind of effect, this bullet time slow motion effect. Obviously, it was used heavily in the X-Men films, a couple classic scenes with the Quicksilver character played by Evan Peters. We've seen this obviously from the bullet time from the Matrix. I think they did a very good job with this. I agree with Alon. The music choice was absolutely perfect for the scene. And I think it was a great way to show just how powerful the Black Adam character is, because you're seeing it through his perspective of everything in slow motion. But I think it's also been something that's played before. I would have liked to have seen DC take a little bit of a risk here and try something different with that scene personally. But again, it's not saying that scene didn't play out well. That did, but I think there's some other choices they could have made within that as well that could have made the scene even something more mind-blowing, because you're seeing something new out of it. And I think that was kind of one of the issues, because I know Black Adam has taken a very long time to come out too, and I think that's maybe one of the reasons why that happened. As far as the JSA goes, this is where you're starting to really hit home with me and why I actually really like this movie. First of all, the addition of Amanda Waller, who I am now calling the Coulson of the DC universe, because she's popping up everywhere, and I think it's actually the perfect character to be the connecting tissue character if you're going to try to build up this universe. The JSA was handled beautifully. It was brilliantly cast. Aldous Hodge, I wasn't sure about him as Hawkman at first, but he nailed the character. We have had some Hawkman things happen with DC's Legends of Tomorrow. If you remember, he was actually a central character in the first season of that show as well. So some people did have some exposure to Hawkman that way, but I thought he was handled very well. I thought Atom Smasher, they nailed perfectly for what he was, and especially in the JSA run, which again, they pulled a lot from this from. He was the young, inexperienced hero. He was looking up to these people who he's kind of idolized, and you have him trying to want to make a good impression and still, be cooperative. And I kind of like how they played up a little bit of the Hawkman trying to be understanding, but like, hey, you and me, we're talking later. I thought that was great. And the Henry Winkler cameo was great as well. I really love the portrayal of Cyclone, a little bit different from what she was in the comics, but I think it actually worked better in this case. And I thought the actress did a phenomenal job. And you can't say enough about Pierce Brosnan. He's one of the greatest actors of our current generation. His portrayal as Dr. Fate was very spot on. There's some things with Dr. Fate I wish they would have talked about a little bit more with his character and developed a little bit more, instead of at times making him feel like, okay, well, we've seen this already with Doctor Strange. Because there's so much complexities to Dr. Fate that I think they could have just done enough. And I think it would have made certain scenes that happen later in the film stand out that much more powerfully. But overall, the JSA was done phenomenally in this film. And I'll say it right now. I think it's something to where they've proven that if you're going to continue with the Black Adam character, you need to have JSA involvement throughout if you do any more Black Adam movies. Because as much as Black Adam and The Rock especially The Rock with his charisma and everything like that, the Black Adam character itself, I don't think can carry a movie on his own. And I think that's why the JSA was so important. And I think they need to be an important piece of the Black Adam movie mythos going forward.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, I do agree that, I think the JSA definitely, as they move forward, do any more Black Adam films, that they are very critical to making Black Adam as good as it was. Most definitely, I think that, I don't foresee Black Adam being able to go on his own without that support from the JSA or any variation of the JSA. I think that those secondary characters for them and that portion, I think, is perfect and brings it together very well. And makes it made the film very good. And that, I totally agree. I think one of the best casting of the JSA I've seen so far. So I'm really happy with what they did with that. Just like you're saying, in Legends of Tomorrow, we did see Hawkman. In the crossover event too, there was a crossover event a couple times. We saw Hawkman and Hawkgirl a couple times too as well. So I think we did get a little brief inkling of them, but I definitely feel they hit it a little more home with this version of Hawkman than any of those I've seen.
Is that a nanotech suit for Hawkman, or is that his power? I was a little confused on that.
I can actually answer this pretty.
Go ahead, Kyle.
They mention it in the movie, a material called nth metal, NTH metal. And that's what Hawkman's suit is made out of. There is some a little bit of technological, but it's mostly this alien material that gives him his flight capabilities and helps him with increased strength and some matters of that. Like I said, Hawkman's origins get a little bit. You could do a whole podcast just on the craziness of Hawkman's origins, but for what they did, I think they did a phenomenal job. And like I said, the nth metal, that's one of those things where if you're not familiar with the DC comics and some of these little Easter eggs that they drop, you're going to be having that question. But that's basically what it was. It's made out of that nth metal, and that's the same thing that the ship was made out of, and a few other things. So
good enough for me.
Awesome. Thank you, Kyle. That great information there. I remember them mentioning that in the film as well. All right, Jeff, sir. Same question. Was there anything you'd like to add to what everyone else has said?
I just assumed that all the Hawkman shit came from Wakanda. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, you know, to be honest with you, I mean, you know, with him being African American and everything and whatnot, I figured he has to be from Wakanda. You know, so that was vibranium. And sure, he made that shit. You know what I mean? You know, no, I'm just kidding. No, the Hawkman is fucking awesome, dude. Are you kidding me? He was, as far as I'm concerned, he was the MVP of the damn movie. That motherfucker was so dope. Like, I mean, come on now, you can't even play. He wasn't even playing around, dude. Hawkman was no joke. Like, he wasn't even playing. Like, I mean, he wasn't weak. Like, he wasn't like, you know, some little bitch. But he was bringing it strong from jump. He wasn't just the leader of the damn team. He was like straight hardcore. He basically could step up to anybody throughout the movie. Like, he did get thrown around here and there, even by like the, you know, the hell demon version or whatever of you know, Sadir there or whatever at the end. But he went toe to toe with everybody he fought in the film. He did, right? Like, what the hell? I think that might have been the Curse of She-Hulk right there, whatever that sound was I just heard there for a minute ago. But that's okay. It's all right. You're not cursed by She-Hulk like I am, Cyber. I'm one of those chauvinist, you know, dudes or whatever and whatnot that they portrayed in the movie. I'm one of those dudes. So, you know, they nailed me. They got me, man. Jessica Gao, she somehow knew all about me. But anyways, no, I think that Kyle's right. The Pierce Brosnan, they could have just done a damn movie. They could have done the origin story of freaking Dr. Fate instead of Black Adam and just called it Black Adam. And I would have walked out happy and just forgot about Black Adam and be like, okay, I'm okay with this. This is all right. There's a lot to Dr. Fate. He's a really interesting origin story. Really interesting how he got his powers. Really, how the helmets are interesting. They never even really got into the helmet. They didn't explain anything about it. They didn't explain that like it chooses who it will work with and whatnot. Almost like a la, you know, like Moldagier, right? Type shit. You know what I mean? Like, you know, like sort of in a way, right? You know, it chooses its users. You know what I mean? Like, you know, not anybody can put that helmet on and actually see the future and whatnot and all that. It doesn't work that way. So it was actually interesting at the end of the movie when Hawkman was able to use it, right? Like, I don't know if people realize that, like, not anybody can just touch that and get any powers from it or whatever and whatnot. But that helmet does a lot. Like it you know, it brings its own powers. Then Dr. Fate himself has his own powers that don't have to do with the helmet, right? Like he uses sorcery and whatnot and everything, a la Doctor Strange, but in a different way. You know, like his origin story with DC is totally different than Doctor Strange's. No, not similar at all. But that is that conflation, though, that you're going to have and deal with right now in this landscape where you are going back and forth when you're DC and you're Marvel, right? Where you do have characters that connect. And you have to take that into consideration in these films. You have to try to portray these characters in ways that aren't the exact same thing as Doctor Strange or Ant-Man, right? You know, it is funny kind of that like Atom Smasher is basically just a different version, like a DC version of like by the end of the film, I literally was laughing at myself and being like, that is freaking Ant-Man in giant mode. Like it is. Like the only difference is Paul Rudd's funnier than this guy. Other than that, same thing. But no, the Justice Society was freaking awesome. I don't and again, I didn't think about it, but yeah, you're right. I don't think Black Adam could carry a movie. It's not The Rock. I don't think the Black Adam as a character has the range. You know, unless you wanted to really play out the whole Shazam, you know, Black Adam routine and whatnot from the comics and whatnot, and go in that direction completely and accurately. Besides that, I can't think of any way that they'd be able to make more Black Adam films and not involve these characters from, you know, the Justice Society, where I feel like they're almost intertwined now with Black Adam. So yeah, that's it. You know, I feel like that was a great part of the movie. It really was. It added a lot. It really did. It added a really, really, really big dynamic for me. And I think that on its own was impressive. The fact that they pulled that off as well as they did. You know, the director, everybody involved in producing the film and whatnot, the fact that they decided to do that the way that they did, they added, again, this relevance, right? This tangibility to them, to where, let's be honest here, there's this impression out there in the fandom, across the fandoms, that shit that DC makes is pretty rough these days. You don't know what to expect, right? stuff's kind of all a shit show right now with DC. So, to make any DC movie right now, whether it's Black Adam or Black Douchebag, either way, to have them come out like that and whatnot and be respectable as you're sitting there in the theater and you're watching this shit and you're like, okay, I'm down with this. This is good. This looks dope. All right, it's working for me. That's great. It was awesome. The fact that it worked, they did it right. That I thought was great.
Excellent. Thank you, sir. And did you have any thoughts on that action sequence, sir, before we move on?
Yes. Just that Cyclone, I like the character. I don't know that they displayed her power set or her effectiveness in combat and everything and whatnot in a way that was relevant and really gave the character any, or as a superhero, any. I really didn't get the gist at all that, like, I could not find any effectiveness in her abilities at all. Like, I did not see her how anybody would have any problem fighting her and like not winning. Besides that, I just wish Hawkman and Dr. Fate were so good in all the action scenes. Like, they were great. I just would love to see more of it.
I was actually talking about the slow motion sequence where Adam was taking out the rest of Intergang.
Oh, yeah. I mean, no. I apologize. No, that was great. I mean, it just displayed the sheer raw power that he has. The fact that he's that effective against Intergang like that. He's that powerful. Regular human beings, like, he just eviscerates into like rocks and shit. Just shocks you with lightning and shit and whatnot, and you're dead.
Awesome. All right. Thank you. All right. So after basically Hawkman tells Amanda, who he has for the Justice Society of America, basically, he tells everyone, he's like, okay, so get ready. We're going to leave. We're going to go. And of course, Adam Smasher says, I don't even have a passport. And Dr. Fate's like, we don't need passports to get where we're going. And basically, you end up seeing, Hawkman's estate open up and a ship coming out of it, which is very X-Men-like feel. I thought it was very similar to that. I felt even the ship looked very similar to the X-Men ships. It was that black color. And, it's definitely a different shape, but I still feel that I think that ship looked amazing. But, of course, we see them get into the ship and basically take off to go to Kondak to intercept Black Adam, of course. As they're basically taking off, that's when it goes back to Black Adam waking up in the house of Adriana, her son, and her brother. And he basically wakes up from a dream that he has of his son, and he shoots lightning at the wall. And, of course, on the wall is a picture of Superman, and he blows Superman's head off, which I think was absolutely hilarious. And the kid goes, whoa, hello, and basically, starts talking to him and starts talking about how he needs to be this hero and all this stuff for the people of Kondak, and giving him advice and stuff like that. And I think that was actually a pretty funny running line throughout the whole film. Him keep giving Black Adam these tips and stuff, like, say, you got to come up with a cool catchphrase and you got to come up with a new name and stuff, because Teth Adams kind of dated and all this kind of stuff. And as time goes on, we'll see him kind of incorporate these things and listen to this kid, which I think is really funny too, from somebody that is as old and ancient as he is. And so he basically wakes up, the kid starts talking to him and stuff like that, and explaining things and stuff like that. And at some point he gets up and he's like, move out of my way. And he's like, he walks through the wall into the living room to where the brother is watching TV and eating, and the mom has just arrived back home. And he's walking, and he's just walking along and pushing the brother with that he's sitting in the couch, and he's like, kind of like, oh, and they kind of have a little conversation there, which I think was really funny. And, basically, saying, what's going on and stuff like that. And so after they have that conversation, then kind of Black Adam walks through the wall again into the like atrium of all the stairs going down out of the building and stuff like that, and he starts slowly descending, and the kid's following him, and it's like, "Where are you going?" And he keeps telling them these things that he needs to incorporate, now that he's back and he's this hero and stuff like that, which is really funny. And that's when Intergang pops back up again, and they start to battle out and stuff like that. And no, sorry, Intergang does not pop up yet. He ascends all the way down, and he ends up going through a wall again into the street outside to Kondak, and he's kind of gliding, and the kid's still following him and stuff like that. And he ends up basically flying up to a statue, which is of Shazam or of Black Adam or Teth Adam himself, and he's kind of staring at it. And as he's staring at it, the kid and his mother ends up intercepting an Intergang guy, and basically are having like this, of course, discussion with them, and they try to get away, and the Intergang guy's chasing them, and that's when all of a sudden Black Adam sees what's going on, pops back up, and that's where we get that funny scene from the trailer where the guy hits him with the baton thing, and it just bends. And then he tries to do it again, and then we see all of a sudden, boom, right up into the sky, which is absolutely freaking hilarious. I laughed my butt off every time I saw that scene in the trailer and when I went and saw the films. And I thought that was absolutely priceless. And so after that, then they start to move, and Black Adam starts fighting Intergang again. And at some point during the fight sequence, that's when basically the JSA arrives, and Hawkeye's like, "Okay, you guys stay here. Me and Dr. Fate will go down, and we'll try to defuse the situation." And that's when we see that scene where he jumps out of the plane and goes down, and we get kind of the introduction of him in his suit and him popping up, and we get to see his wings and stuff like that, which is really cool. And basically, we have kind of like a brief this battle sequence with the JSA and Black Adam, and basically they have this giant battle out. Basically, Black Adam and Hawkman battle out a little bit. We see them fighting and stuff like that, and at some point there, while it's going on, we end up seeing Ishmael again, and he reveals basically that he is the leader of Intergang in Kondak, and basically we kind of see kind of his shady dealings on the side there a little bit. And at one point after the whole battle sequence is over, when basically Amon gets back to the apartment again with this crown of Sabak in his pocket, he ends up Ishmael's there with the brother, and basically he's there to steal the crown of Sabak. And basically, he kind of starts threatening Amon, and they try to do this thing. And then as Intergang comes in, they start having kind of a battle inside the thing again. Black Adam pops back up, and he sees what's going on and starts battling the Intergang again. And we basically have kind of that cool little sequence there. So before we move on past that, let's talk a little bit about this battle sequence with JSA and Black Adam, their first kind of interactions with each other, and kind of that beginning sequence there of Black Adam kind of getting this information from Amon, and kind of Black Adam kind of starting to adjust himself to the new age that he's in. What were you guys' thoughts on this? And what was your was there anything you liked about it, didn't like? What'd you think about it? Just overall experience with these sequences. Starting with you, Alon.
Yeah, I think Jeff mentioned this. It's Hawkman, and the actor who plays him really has this in control leader-esque quality to him, and so for Black Adam to be I don't care what you're saying right now sort of attitude towards him, and dismisses him, and kind of just all in all kicks the whole JSA's ass about it, even though I have to say they gave a good fight, but I mean, you're dealing with Superman level power here, right? So without the moral standard to it. So I I like the fight scenes, but I think what makes them most effective is the relationship between Black Adam and Amon, and how he tries to push him towards to have those like Superman like morals, right? Because we know how much Amon worships the superheroes already. Batman posters, Superman posters, Wonder Woman posters. So he's almost like that what is it? Kind of like that teacher character, right? But it's kind of on it flipped on its head, being a little kid and being like the innocent, but also trying to teach Black Adam, don't kill, have to have a cool name, got to have a cape, stuff like that. Catchphrase. I love the whole catchphrase thing. I thought that was like hilarious throughout the whole thing, even how they like use it at the end. Um, but yeah, their relationship makes all of the action sequences and the character arc that Black Adam goes through like totally worth it in the end. All riding on the emotional cusp of the Amon character. So yeah, of course, every time we see him in danger and stuff like that, we're like, oh no, is the JSA gonna save him? Right? Which is because like in our heads they're the heroes, but then Black Adam comes in and saves him. And then it every time that happens, I think it just reaffirms that JSA is cool, but they're not the heroes of this movie.
Awesome. Thank you. And this is where you have to bid us adieu, I heard?
Yeah, I sorry, I didn't realize I was I didn't have dinner. So yeah, I have to go or I will wither away.
Okay. Well, before you leave, what would you give Black Adam as a final rating at 1 out of 10 before you leave, and then we'll let you go?
Yeah, I'm usually a really harsh critic, but I'll say an 8 out of 10. I think for what it wanted to be, and mind you, the superhero movie I saw before this was Morbius, so my standards were very low, like very, very low. So this is Oscar worthy comparatively. Okay. So but yeah, I think 8 out of 10 because it wasn't trying to be something it wasn't. It was trying to be fun, and I think it accomplished that.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you for being on the panel tonight, and
Yeah.
we will see you hopefully soon.
Definitely. Thank you guys for having me.
You're welcome. Have a great night.
Thank you. You too.
Take care, brother.
See ya, Jeff.
Take care.
Bye, Kyle.
All right. So, Kyle, same question, sir.
So as far as the battle with the JSA goes, this is again, I think this is where Black Adam shined, was nailing the JSA characters and how Black Adam related to them, because Aldous Hodges Hawkman, I think, does do a phenomenal job in this movie, and I think Pierce Brosnan actually steals this movie in all truth. But what works so well, let's start with Aldous Hodges Hawkman, is the fact that yes, he's got this leadership quality to him, but they still made him enough of the hothead that Hawkman can be. And the other thing I liked about it, though, was even though Hawkman isn't near Black Adam's power level, he's they portrayed him as a power level enough that, okay, yeah, he's probably not going to beat Black Adam 9 times out of 10, but he's got enough power level there that, if he gets that one lucky punch in or something, he can make Black Adam's day a little bit harder. And I like that aspect of it. As far as Atom Smasher goes, again, just playing him up as kind of I'm new to this, in a way, like the Peter Park, in a little bit of Peter Parker-ish, a little bit of Ant-Man-ish, with his character, I thought was interesting. Cyclone, like, weather powers are always a hard sell in movies. They've never really been it's kind of like stretching powers. It's hard to get them over in film for whatever reason. And I think that's one of the reasons why Jeff may have had the issue with seeing her powers and how they were portrayed. I think in the comics, you can show her just how powerful she is a lot easier than you can in film. But the interactions between Black Adam and the JSA, I thought were very well done. This first fight sequence in the city was great. I love the Amon Adam relationship because Amon so wants him to be the hero. He wants him to be. Black Adam's never going to be that per se. And I think that's one of the interesting relationships that kind of goes throughout the movie as Adam kind of starts realizing what he needs to, what Amon wants him to be, but he can't be that. And Amon's realizing that Black Adam is never going to be that Superman per se, but he can still be the hero of the people that they need. And I think that's one of the more interesting aspects of it. Plus, I gotta say this: that's quite the apartment building that Amon lives in, to have an escape route through out of his bedroom and down into different apartments and just all the players. I'm like, yeah, where was this kind of apartment when I was a kid to play in? But I think overall that for that initial meeting, they did a good job with it. I think though, for me too, one of the things with Black Adam is it almost feels like, to me, it's one of these films that's a Marvel Phase 1 film where you feel like because of the problems DC had, they're still trying to figure out how to build this universe. And in doing so, it's still kind of hindering them to some basic comic book movie tropes and things like that you see in Black Adam. And yes, it makes it fun. It's much like a comparison to the first Captain America movie with his origin. There's fun elements to it, but I think especially here, you're just like, gosh, there's a lot of tropes. And we've come so far in comic book movies from 10, 15 years ago that in a way, it's the one thing with Black Adam, as fun as it is, it still feels like, yeah, DC, you're still a good 10 years behind everybody else when it comes to your comic book films.
I'm saying, yeah, that escape route that he has in his bedroom, I thought was so cool. I absolutely love that. Having that little stairway down into the inner circle of the apartment building was just so cool. I absolutely love that. I was thinking that same thing. I was like, holy crap, I wish I had that. I think that would have been awesome to have. I think that was really cool. And I thought it was really awesome just to see that too. I thought it was just, it made me think of, 90s sitcom films or 90s movies where the kids would escape somehow and they had like some kind of secret exit out of their apartment buildings or their bedrooms or something like that. Totally made me think of that. I feel a lot of films in the 90s showed those and stuff like that, which I thought was really fun. Sir Jeff, your thoughts, sir, on the JSA initial fight sequence and the basically the outing of Ishmael being a bad guy, leading to the fight sequence in the building.
Sorry about that. Well, I think that bouncing again off of Alon and Kyle, and your comments too, Cyber, I feel like I think Kyle definitely is spot on, almost in that Dr. Fate in a way, almost kind of. I don't know if he took over the film, but he certainly was more impressive to me than Black Adam. I mean, just the little bit that they showed of his abilities with his powers and whatnot and everything, even though they didn't really explain where they come from or like anything like that and what they really were, it looked great. They did a great job. I'm telling you. I apologize. I'm telling you. I don't want to be overly critical, so I don't want to I don't want to be like, oh well, DC films like messed up here, like killing him off in the film the way they did, and not really fleshing out more of his character and what he can do and how and where it came from and all that whatnot. And then just ending it. Who knows? Maybe they'll go back and decide they want to do like a prequel or something with him, right? You know what I mean? Like, you can do that, right? Look at what they did with Black Widow. How well that worked. But no, I feel like everybody said, like Kyle said, they did a great job with Hawkeye where they showed him, he was capable he was powerful enough to stand his ground, right? With everybody he fought basically in the film. Even if he did get his ass beat here and there a little bit and got tossed around, even when he did, right? He got back up, he didn't look like he was going to die afterwards. He got back up and just jumped back in the fight. He never gave up. He never passed out, you know what I mean? Or whatever, or went unconscious completely for the day or whatever. He kept on going. So, again, I didn't know exactly what to expect from Hawkman going into the film. I don't know that much about Hawkman. I knew more about Hawkman's backstory, like Kyle saying, it is complicated as shit. than I did about like Black Adams. I did, you know, I knew more about him. And that's just because Hawkman was like a, you know, even for the little bit of DC that I did read in the comics as a kid, Hawkman was a relevant character, you know, at that point in like the late 80s and then the 90s and whatnot and everything. You saw him in crossovers and stuff in different like comics with DC and stuff like that. He was actually like a, you know, consistent secondary character, I think. No, I thought that you know, the fight scenes were really well done. Basically, I think everything they did with the Justice Society was well done. I don't have any complaints with anything they did with it, and I feel like again would not be the same movie without them in it. Just wouldn't be the same. And I don't see how anybody did not get that by the end of the film, that like it wouldn't have worked without them. They were vital, right? So, you know, and obviously we'll get into like, you know, how things end up playing out overall with Dr. Fate and everything and whatnot. But again, I watched a when they released the teaser, right? Like what was it? Like at that DC fandom event or whatever it was for Black Adam, they had some interviews with the actors, and they showed them, you know, and whatnot. You could watch them. I watched Brosnan get interviewed about how he felt about playing Dr. Fate and everything and being in the movie and whatnot. And he seemed just very humbled and like appreciative to have had the opportunity to be in the movie and to get a chance to play this character and whatnot and everything, you know, and seemed very enthusiastic about having had the chance to play Dr. Fate and whatnot. And I really enjoyed hearing that.
Cool. Thank you. Awesome. I would agree. Everything I've heard from Pierce Brosnan about playing the character, about wanting to play the character, he basically said that because he liked what Benedict Cumberbatch did with Doctor Strange. He thought it looked so much fun and he wanted to do it, and that's basically why he ended up getting picked for, you know, Dr. Fate. Yes, Kyle.
I wanted to add in, since we're talking about Dr. Fate too, one of the things I've read in several places is that this is a scene that maybe we'll see if we get deleted scenes or an extended director's cut. There's supposed to be a scene at the end of the film that you see a hand come and pick up Dr. Fate's helmet. But I think because of the direction of DC at this point, they weren't real sure if they should include that or not. And I think that's something that I think they're going to get back to that, because I think the response to that character has been so popular and so positive. I think it is something that they will readdress.
I definitely agree. I think that the desire for Dr. Fate now, because of how well Pierce Brosnan did with the character, has made the fans want more of Dr. Fate. So I don't think this is the last time we're going to see Dr. Fate, most definitely. I don't know, if it'll be Pierce Brosnan again or not, but who knows? We definitely will see more of Dr. Fate.
The only thing I ask is we don't go early 2000s Dr. Fate where they melted the helmet down and made it a sword and like these throwing ink darts and made it like mercenary Dr. Fate. Let's stay far away from that.
Oh, you don't want Ronin Dr. Fate?
Yeah, exactly.
Let's hope. Yeah, let's not hope they don't do that. All right. So moving on. So, like we basically left off with the Battle of Intergang, starting with them trying to capture Amon with the helmet, with the crown, basically, and his thing. As Black Adam comes in and starts battling him, stuff like that. At one point, Ishmael does come across Amon again and grabs his backpack, opens it. The crown is not in there. He's like, you're coming with me. And basically, he ends up going off into a scooter with him on a journey, basically. And basically, at this point, the mother asks Black Adam to go get his son and save him. And Black Adam agrees and goes off to save him. And he starts like going to every single scooter and starts battling the people and basically destroying the scooters to find if the boy is in them. And as he's doing this, of course, Hawkman, he's right behind him saying, don't kill anybody. And basically, saying, if we keep prisoners, we can ask them questions to try to find the boy. And as we saw in that one sequence where basically Black Adam takes the two guys up from Intergang and like starts saying, one of you I will drop, one of you I will not drop. Tell me where the boy is, or what's going on and stuff like that. And he ends up dropping one of them. And of course, Hawkman's like, oh crap, we're gonna go save him. And he goes fly down to save him. Then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, the other guy gets dropped, and he has to save him too. He's like, We don't kill prisoners. And you don't get any information out of them. Of course, they battle out a little bit again in the apartment. And so that's, after that is, when the mother asks that and he goes off to battle things and they, basically he gets to the last scooter and the kid's not in there. And you think he is because as it's being opened up, we see the kid, but actually the kid is on a transport bus or truck being transported out of the city with Ishmael. And so that's when, basically they end up going to this new lair that Ishmael is at. They're in like this force field thing, and basically the JSA and Black Adam and all of them go to find where he is, and they go to this place, and basically they kind of talk it out. Like the mother's like, "Okay, I'll give you the crown if you give me my son and don't hurt him." And basically gives the crown, and then Ishmael basically goes back on his word and shoots at Amon. And as that happens, basically Black Adam himself is having flashbacks to his son, and basically goes super speed to try to stop the bullet. He stops the bullet, but then because of being like a flashback and kind of having like post-traumatic stress almost, he ends up blowing up again like he did in the past, and basically destroying the whole thing, killing Ishmael and entering Amon. So back on the ship, they're like, they got him on up there. They're having him fixed with the medical equipment on there and stuff like that. And Black Adam basically travels back to where the King's throne is, and he's sitting there. And Hawkman goes and has a talk with him. And basically, he explains, what really happened and all this kind of stuff. And we find out that, his son gave him his powers as actually his son. That was the original Shazam. And that he gave his powers to his father to save him because basically the king, Antok, had all of his family killed. And because he found out who, Shazam was. And so then basically he's like, my son uttered these words. That's what turned me into this. I'm willing to give it up and basically kind of like, atone for his sins, basically. And so he says Shazam and he turns back into his normal self from what he was when he got the powers at first. And that's when they basically go back and it actually finally shows the face of the older gentleman kind of stepping in to save the son at the beginning of the film. And you find out that it's actually him. And so after that, that's when he gets taken to this high-tech facility, which has, if you noticed, a whole bunch of people there. And it's quite interesting to want to know, who are all these people that are there in these suspended animation tanks? So hopefully, I'm hoping that later on in different films or TV series, they kind of go into that because I like to know who else is there. But basically put Black Adam into this tank thing, put a thing into his mouth so that he can't utter the words, and basically put him in suspended animation. So after they do that, Adriana and one of the other people, they're like examining the crown of Sabak, and they're trying to decipher the words that it says, saying only death will bring life or whatever like that or something like that. And basically she starts to think, and she ends up thinking that it's upside down and goes, hey, turn that around. And yeah, that does mean this. And that's what actually he was trying to do, is trying to say that death is what brings new life. And they basically figure that out. And then that's all of a sudden when it goes to the underworld. And all of a sudden there's Ishmael being reborn and basically come back as Sabak. And that's when Sabak comes back out of the ground and onto Earth. And basically the crown ends up disappearing. And then it's on new Ishmael Sabak's head. So before we move on past that, let's talk a little bit about kind of Black Adam giving himself up, those final battle sequences, and kind of what everyone's thoughts are on those. Starting with you, Kyle.
So this is where this film gets a little interesting for me, because you have the classic shell game chase scene, which I think is actually a lot of fun and very well done. And I love the dynamic of Hawkman trying to chase him down so he doesn't kill anybody. You get some great you actually get a little bit great comedy things too here with the whole sarcastic thing that they're playing off of with Black Adam, and then just the back and forth between Black Adam and Hawkman throughout this whole chase scene and the prisoner interrogation, I think is very well done and actually quite a bit of fun. But this is when you start, and then you actually get the big twist of the movie where it's Teth Adam was the father, the son gave him the powers, things like that, meaning a big twist for here. It's an interesting twist if you're not familiar with it. I think it makes you wonder then what kind of person was the father, that we know now that this is somebody who has these powers, and that's why he was in prison, because he used them for vengeance, not what the wizards had originally wanted to be for these powers. What's interesting is the fact that the wizards actually just didn't take the powers away from him, and that's always been kind of a question mark with Shazam and Black Adam as it is. But this is also at the point where the movie, in a way, kind of lost me a little bit, because I'm trying to figure out the time frame. You take him to the Supermax prison and I'm like you, I would be very intrigued, and I really was kind of hoping that one of the stingers might have been a return to that prison. Maybe we focus in on a particular character or somebody who's in that prison and go, oh, okay, well, now we know which direction we're headed. But the time frame of him being turned into this prison, imprisoned, the JSA going back after everything that happens, and Sabak shows up, and that whole battle, and then him coming out. That's a lot condensed in a very short time frame. Because I don't know about you, I'm thinking maybe 48 hours is probably what's passed of time passed in this situation. And also, I'm not necessarily sure Amanda Waller's real thrilled that civilians got to find out where this particular facility is. And it's the one thing that I think DC has really done very well is the building of the Amanda Waller character, because I think she is really probably the most intriguing character in the existing DC universe now, and a character we know is going to carry on because of James Gunn's wonderful relationship with Viola Davis and the Amanda Waller character. She was even in Peacemaker. So there's a lot of Amanda Waller still coming. But I think that was the biggest thing for me, was just the time frame felt really off and really condensed. And obviously we're only talking a couple hour movie here, but still, it felt like there was no time passage here. And that's, for this kind of movie, I think you needed to have something to establish a little bit of it's been a couple of days or something like that. Because if this all happens within a few hours time frame, that's pushing it for me. And so it's a nitpick, I know, but it's just one of those ones that is like, yeah, this is where the story could have fleshed a few things out a little more.
Thank you. Yeah, that was a lot condensed into a short amount of time. But even though it was condensed, I myself thought that it still flowed pretty well. I didn't feel like it was too much, and I didn't feel like it was overwhelming. I still thought they did a pretty good job. I felt still there, ever flowing, I thought. But yeah, I understand. I get the thoughts that, yeah, most definitely that's a lot of stuff in that short amount of time. Most definitely. Jeff, same question, sir. You're muted too, sir.
I'm telling you. Anyways, no, I think that Kyle's really on point. I mean, I would even go a little bit farther than that and say that, sort of for me, the energy level of the film, or the flow of it, at that point, started to drop a little bit as we went forward into the film. As we got into like the climax of the movie, right? I'm not saying it wasn't good or I didn't like it. I'm just saying that right around this time, I felt like I was loving where everything was going. It really was. It was cool that they showed Task Force X and everything and whatnot, the black site in Antarctica and whatnot. Another great DC Comics tie, right? I would have liked to have known who that woman was that runs the Task Force X or whatever and whatnot. They showed and whatnot. The way that she taught and the way that they talked to her and everything and whatnot was like she's a normal part of the DC extended universe or whatever. Like she's well known or whatever. So I was kind of wondering in the theater, I wonder who this is and what her name is or whatever. They never said like, what her name was, but either way, yeah. So yeah, I mean, it was interesting. I thought that it was, I guess, dramatic. and whatnot, and all that to see Tech Adam be willing to like to bend his knee like that. You know what I mean? You know, to actually kneel to someone and whatnot, and be imprisoned and whatnot, and to choose to do that, everything and whatnot. I thought that it was an interesting turn, right, for him to like kind of come to Jesus like that and all that. And all I can just say is, as I said, I felt like from that point on, as we moved forward into the film, things started to head into a direction where they became sort of farcical at times almost. Some of the secondary humoristic type characters, again, like the brother and whatnot, and everything started to become useless to me, and almost pointless. And so at that point, I just felt like the energy kind of shifted as we moved forward into the film. Up until that point, I was really, really engrossed in it, and I'm not saying that it made the film worse or bad. I'm just saying that was kind of the peak for me, the turning point.
Awesome. All right. Thank you. Yeah. I mean, like I was saying, what Kyle said. Yeah, that's a lot packed into that one section there. Most definitely. But yeah, I mean, I still think that they did a pretty good job of keeping it condensed, but at the same time, keeping it entertaining, action packed, and flowing. I thought they still did a pretty good job. All right, so so after the rise of Sabak, we see him rise from the sea, and we see him floating over the sea, going towards the castle. And that's basically when it goes back to basically Hawkman and the rest of the JSA, and basically what they got to do. And Dr. Fate basically says that he sees Hawkman die, and that nobody's future is set, and that we can change it. And I have a plan to help change that. And this is a bad plan, but we're still going to do it. And basically, they end up going to the temple. And that's when basically we get there, and Hawkman starts to try to go up the stairs, and he's blocked by something. He can't get through. And that's when Dr. Fate reveals that he has a third option, that he's going with the third option, that he's taking on Sabak himself, and that they stay there so that nothing happens to them. And so he goes in and starts to battle, Sabak. And we get this kind of great kind of one-on-one fight between Dr. Fate and Sabak, which is really awesome. We get to see a little bit more of Dr. Fate's powers, him using kind of that same tool that Doctor Strange has used, where he uses multiples of himself to, go after his enemy. And we see kind of this great kind of action CGI sequence there. And as he's battling him, basically gets to a point where, unfortunately, we get to a point where, he gets killed by Sabak. And when that happens, that releases the force field that he put over the building. And that's when Hawkman, Cyclone, and Atom Smash are able to come in and start to battle, Sabak themselves. So as they're battling and stuff like that, we see Pierce Brosnan before he gets killed. We get to see him basically talking to Black Adam, saying that, the only way to stop this and to survive is we need your help, Black Adam. We need you to regain that power and come and help us. And that it's up to you to help, basically save the world. And basically that's when we see kind of him break out of his chamber, fights off a few of the different guards and stuff like that, and then jumps out of into the ocean and starts rising up towards the top. And as he rises up to the top, we kind of get another flashback kind of thing. He sees his wife and his son, and he's talking to his son and saying, "It's now time for me to come see you." And he's like, "No, it's not your time, Dad. It's time for you to, do what you need to do, not to be the hero, but to help save the world, basically." And that's when he enters the word Shazams and becomes Black Adam again. And so then we go back to the battle. The other guys are fighting them still. Basically, the sequence we kept seeing Dr. Fate seeing it happens to Hawkman, and then of course the show after that happens, then Hawkman reveals, like, I learned a trick from my old friend, and he's using that same power that Dr. Fate was using prior to them getting in there, and they're still battling him. And as they're battling him, and basically you're thinking that he's about to win, and to sit up, he basically breaks away from them, sits on the throne, and basically is able to start summoning the hell onto Earth, and that's when out of nowhere that's when Black Adam returns and hits them, and they start to battle. And so as they're battling, the JSA is helping Black Adam out as they're battling and stuff. They're all battling and stuff like that, and basically gets to a point where they're able to keep Sabak subdued enough to where Black Adam's able to rip him in half. Oh my god, that was so cool. I was like, holy crap, that was so cool. And so basically they destroy Sabak, and the hell on Earth goes back into the underground, back to where it was coming from. And basically they have saved the day. And that's when, basically they're like, you've helped us. Now you're back. You're not staying in the X place. And, basically shows him, he sits on the throne, like, basically what he how's it feel? And he's like, feels wrong. And he jumps up and breaks the throne. And basically, what are you going to do? He's like, well, what Kondak needs is not a hero, but a person to protect them. And basically that's when it, fades out. And excuse me, fellow folks out there. A lot of talking. And so then after it fades out, that's when it goes basically to the credits, and we get a little bit of the credits, and they go by. And basically, all of a sudden we come to a big credit scene. Shows basically all of a sudden shows like Black Adam again, and then it shows this little like saucer thing flying down, a little remote control thing, and Amanda Waller pops up, and basically she starts talking to Black Adam, saying, "Well, you not gotta stay in my facility. I still gotta keep tabs on you, and like you need basically this Kondak is your prison now. You can't leave there. You just stay out there. You step out. I will send things to destroy you." And he's like, send them, because there's nothing that you have that can destroy me. She's like, I have my things. And basically then Black Adam destroys the little flying majiggy thing. And then out of the shadows, all of a sudden we see something approaching him. And who is it? None other than Superman. He's like, and basically he goes, we have to talk. And that's it. That's the end of the film. Oh my gosh, that cameo was the best. I was so thrilled by it. I know a lot of people were upset that it wasn't Shazam, because Shazam and him are mortal enemies, arch enemies, and that they think that would have been more connecting than Superman. But what a better way to reintroduce Henry Cavill as Superman again into the DCU again, or DC universe, as they're calling it now. And so let's get people's final thoughts on this end sequence. What were you guys' thoughts on this end sequence? What did you think about the mid-credit scene? Was there anything that stood out to you? Was there anything you didn't like? Basically, what were your thoughts on this ending conclusion to this great film? Starting with you, Kyle.
So, in a way, I agree with what Jeff was saying earlier about the energy of the film really changing drastically once they imprison him. Because I really, in a way, it felt like everything that happened with Sabak was predictable. We knew it was coming. It didn't have this like threatening energy to me. I think the aspect of the JSA being involved again was the more intriguing factor. Everything with Dr. Fate was very, very important and very well done. I need to say this though, because here's one of the issues that I have with this is that they greatly depowered Dr. Fate in this movie. Dr. Fate is incredibly powerful. This is a guy who in the DC universe has gone toe to toe with the Spectre at the Spectre's full power range. He is empowered by gods basically with that helmet. And so I think they kind of downplayed it, but I think the reason why they downplayed it too is because you had a character that in Kent who was older and could see his own time running out, and I think that's why they did that. That aspect makes sense. Having Hawkman be able to pull the trick off because of his history with Kent Nelson too, I think was a smart move and well done. The other issue I had with it was basically they leave that helmet basically like nobody, but they're just leaving this incredibly powerful artifact sitting around. Like nobody went to collect it or anything like that. And again, supposedly there was a scene cut that's on the editing floor that we might see in the deleted scenes that will address that. So we'll see. I thought, but Sabak himself it's actually a very powerful character that's made several appearances in the DC universe, but it was so predictable how it was going to come at this point. And I think that again is what one issue with Black Adam really is that it was as far as telling a comic book movie, it was very paint by numbers. It was like you're this point, this point, this point, this point. And the problem was, and this is something that's I'm not going to single out Black Adam for. It's a problem that's been one of the biggest problems I think in a lot of comic book movies is that final epic battle with the villain. Is just who was supposed to be the main. The problem is that Sabak really wasn't built. And so we didn't know what to expect from him. And so I don't think there was ever any sense of threat because he wasn't built up until like this very last sequence where we see the transformation. And even then it just still felt like, yeah, okay, whatever. The bigger conflict is the JSA and Black Adam and how they're dealing with that. I think though that at the end with him becoming kind of the protector of conduct, Teth Adam accepting his role as trying to now accept his role as Black Adam, change what he is. And I think that scene where he has that conversation with his son and his wife is actually a very important scene in this movie because it is where you see him trying to develop an acceptance of certain things. And for him and Hawkman to end off on kind of we're not going to team up too much in the future, but you know what? There's at least a mutual respect here, there. So I think that was very important. And I think how they ended it before the credits was solid. As for the mid-credit scene, I love what they did with it, having it be Superman. And obviously there's been so much with this. The Rock basically spoiling it for everybody before the movie even comes out that it's Henry Cavill because they had actually filmed it two ways. One with Cavill, one where you don't see Superman's face at all you see is the chest emblem. I love the fact what Waller says is he says to Black Adam, well, I have otherworldly things that I can call into to take care of you if you get out of line. And then he destroys it and then Superman shows up. Here's the thing, and this is just what I believe. There is no way Superman is doing favors for Amanda Waller. It ain't happening. I think Superman probably was aware of the situation and has gone there on his own volition. And I think that's if they kind of did that kind of as a little bit of a trick to maybe introduce another character along somewhere down the line that Amanda Waller would bring in. If we have a Black Adam versus Superman, maybe Waller brings in this other character and it's something that Superman and Black Adam end up having to do the team up for to take down that particular character. Because when you talk about Black Adam versus Superman, it gets complicated. They're incredibly powerful characters, but because Black Adam is magic based and magic is a huge vulnerability for Superman, that's kind of a big thing. And that's actually a lot of people have talked about Black Adam actually being more powerful than Superman because of that. But I'm curious to see how that's going to play out in the future because I think it's a key part of what could be the future of the DC universe, and we still have so much unknown right there. But to have, I think more than anything, it was The Rock flexing his muscle a little bit to get Henry Cavill back as Superman, which I think is a great thing because I truly believe Henry Cavill can be a much better Superman than we've seen. He just hasn't been given the right script and the right chance for it. I think we've seen it in flashes, especially in the Snyder cut of JLA. And I really I'm looking forward to the chance of him being a Superman where he's put a little bit more of himself into it and a little bit more charismatic because I think Henry Cavill is very charismatic and can give us more of a Superman that we truly believe in than what we've seen so far from his performances in Man of Steel and Batman versus Superman. I think too, when I look at it as a whole, is that The Rock really has never had that big franchise. Yes, he's part of the Fast and Furious, but he's never really taken a character, though I've always felt his character Beck from The Rundown they could have done more with that character and had a couple more movies with that. The Rock tends to play it safe. I love The Rock. The Rock is one of the most charismatic people in the world. You can't hate The Rock. He flashes that $1 million smile. He cracks a few jokes. You love him. what I really hope though is that The Rock, if they're going to continue with Black Adam, we see The Rock start taking a little bit of chances now. Now, if this is gonna be a franchise for him, take some chances with the character. Let the character, because the character can be very well done and very complex. So I'm curious to see what they're going to do going forward. But yeah, as far as that particular sequence, that's one of the better stingers DC has ever done. As far as the final battle itself, yeah, but the things around the final battle with the JSA, with the relationship between the JSA and the Rock and things like that, that's where the JSA and Black Adam, that's where the intrigue is for me. And that's what I really liked about this film. Because again, I think the whole relationship of the JSA and Black Adam is the heart of this film.
Awesome. Thank you. Jeff, is there anything you would like to add, sir? And that same question to you.
Yeah, I mean, of course, like the Superman mid-credit scene was freaking awesome. It was like, it wasn't like, it didn't make or break the film. It just, I mean, it wasn't some shit where, like, when I saw Venom 2, like, the highlight of the freaking movie was like, the crossover at the end where, like, you realize we're finally, and you see Peter Parker, and you hear Peter Parker and everything and whatnot, and you realize that, we're going to get the Venom Spider-Man deal at some point, right? Like, that was the highlight for me for Venom 2. Other than that, it was like depressive torture up until that point, being in the theater watching the film. I think that my date actually decided to not fuck me that night because of the movie, because I subjected herself to that shit. She like rejected me because of it. So thank you, Venom and Venom 2 for that. I appreciate that. Very helpful to me, but that's okay. That didn't happen with Black Adam, thankfully. No, seeing Henry Cavill was great. Knowing that Dwayne Johnson rallied for that was great. Great to see that connection, right, between different actors and actresses and whatnot, that they can pull for each other, and that Black Adam understood the importance of making sure that was Cavill, right, in there in that spot. I wouldn't have wanted to see Shazam. I was happy to see freaking Henry Cavill as Superman. I think Kyle's right. I think that I don't know that I've spent enough time breaking down the Superman films to where I can honestly say the stories just didn't work with him or whatever, or he hasn't been done right or something like that. I thought he was great in Snyder Cut. Very well used. But I do think that with Waller, I think that, it's possible, Kyle, that Waller could potentially have the ability to talk to Superman, and he might work with her because she's sort of like an anti-hero in a way. She is legitimate, like she has a legitimate official position where, yeah, she does some bad shit, right? But she also she's a legitimate, character in what she does, in that she is looked at in this universe as a problem solver, right? As someone that, that does good in some instances, and just in her own dirty ass, unethical ways, unfortunately, you know what I mean? So at that point, I think that we've already seen that DC is willing to go into more of a graphic, darker, grittier, right? Almost R-rated, almost to that level type place, right? With their films and their content. They're not afraid to do that. Maybe they even realize that there's a lack of that right now, and a desire for that from fans to some extent. And maybe that's their ticket. Maybe that's the contrast they want from Marvel, is to be like, you know what, we're gonna go against Disney and have graphic shit, have dark characters, have dark, have violence, have blood, right? Have swearing and whatnot and all that. We'll see. I don't know, but I don't think it's preposterous at all that Waller would have the ability in a certain situation, in a certain instance, to contact Superman and he would work with her, just begrudgingly, right? Like, okay, I don't trust you at all. I know you're an asshole and you'd fuck me in a minute over, but I do grasp that, like, if you're calling me, there must be some serious shit going down, right? That's all I'm saying. And it all adds to the intrigue, right, Kyle? Like, it makes things interesting, when you have these characters who you don't know, what's going on with them, or what's possible or not possible. But either way, overall, again, it just shows you how impactful an actor can have in such a small role in a film. That Waller had such an impact for me in the theater. Every time she was in the movie, I just it brought this gravity, just like Pierce Brosnan, of this this professionality, right? This weight. Go ahead, Kyle.
Yeah. I think what it is with Waller, at any rate, is, and this is the beauty of Amanda Waller and what they've actually done with her. They've not overexposed her, so when she's on the screen, things are serious. There's always going to be something a little bit more going on. And like I said, with the advent of James Gunn now taking over DC, I think the Amanda Waller character is going to definitely be around for a while. I think, though, that it's going to be very interesting to see how DC pans out going forward with this. I kind of just think that they're still figuring out a little bit. I know that they are going to continue forward with the Blue Beetle project. Aquaman 2 is obviously still coming out. Flash is coming out. Obviously, I think the Flash thing is going to be something that is going to affect how this universe works one way or the other. And I think they haven't made up their mind yet on it, which is the scariest proposition. And I think that to me, that's kind of one of the issues for Black Adam too. And I feel bad for The Rock in this instance, is that I think Black Adam, more than any other current DC project, is the one that's really left hanging in limbo until James Gunn and the new creative minds at DC really start to figure out what directions they want to go in. And I just think that's kind of a shame, because I think there's a fun franchise here with some caveats, but they've got to figure out what direction they're going to go in first.
Yes, I think that's really a really good point, Kyle. I think that Cyber and myself, would you agree with you 100%? Believe me, we did our first DCEU, full complete show where that's all we talked about. There was no Marvel at all for 2.5 hours straight, and we've never done that before until that point, Kyle. Partially, that's one of the reasons why I reached out to you about doing this review and whatnot and everything, is because of the fact that Cyber and I won't lie about it. We're not experts on DC. We're not. It's not our our background, right? We do Marvel. That's what.
Unfortunately, I don't even think that the experts at DC are necessarily experts on DC at this point.
Hey, you know what they did? Hey, they certainly did a great job with Black Adam as far as infusing the comic book stuff into the movie and whatnot, right? I mean, again, it's coming from like a very, very, very amateur place here in terms of knowledge of DC Comics. I believe as like a rookie with this, that it seemed to me like they were doing a good job, right?
I think in the case of Black Adam, if you're going to ask me where I rank it and everything like that too, guys, is that I personally would say Black Adam's a 6, maybe a 7 out of 10 as far as the ranking goes. It's a great movie experience, because it's one of those movies you can go to, you can leave everything that's happening in the outside world behind you, just get engrossed in this film, have fun, enjoy it, and it is what it is, and you take it for that. And I think there's a lot of good elements. There's some elements in this as far as comic book movie fans and as fans of certain characters in DC, they've done a good job with. I think for some people it wasn't their cup of tea. For other people, it's The Rock. It's entertaining. There's action. That's all they want. That's all they need. Bam, go in. And I think you just really see that when the difference in reviews between the fans who go see it and the critics. And I think the most important thing about this movie is that you look at it, and did you walk out of it? Did you feel like you had a fun time, even if some of it was just so crazy asinine or just beyond what you were expecting? And yes, everybody I've talked to for the most part has at least come out and said, I felt like I was entertained. And I don't think you can ask, especially considering the state of DC right now, you can't ask for anything more than that. And like I said, I think if they handle it right, they do have a franchise here, with the caveat being, as I've said multiple times during the show, is that you have to keep the JSA as part of the Black Adam universe. You cannot take Black Adam and make it a solo film. I don't think the character himself is enough to carry a franchise on his own. He needs that supporting cast booting him up. And I don't know if The Rock, as much as I love The Rock, I question whether The Rock is capable enough as an actor and willing to take some of the risks that you could take with Black Adam as a character to push the envelope on it. And again, I love The Rock, but you know what you're getting with The Rock. And it's something that I've been really hoping to see The Rock take some more chances with his character choices and make himself a little bit more of a character that you can relate to a little bit more of a vulnerable, not always the superhero, where you're going to see him take some punches and be down for the count. And then you're kind of not quite sure, is he actually going to get through this? And I think that's part of The Rock's whole WWE persona that he's carried on into his films. So I would like to see where The Rock is still a powerful character, but really faces a legit challenge. And I think that was one of the issues with Black Adam in this film was I didn't feel like at any point Black Adam was getting a legit challenge. And
no, Kyle, I agree with you. And I think that, and I'll wrap this up very quickly. I think that overall, I left the theater happy with the film. Maybe I wasn't happy with the $64 it cost me to pay for me and my date to have popcorn, 2 sodas, and nachos, and 2 tickets to the movie. I thought that was a little bit extreme, but then again, that's how much it costs every time, right? It's $55, $64, $71 every time I go. So it is what it is, right? Part of the deal. Unless you want to go by yourself. So, which I don't want to do. But I will though, right? But only for Venom 3. Only for that. Or Morbius 2. I'm only going solo for Morbius 2. If they make that. But either way, no, I walked away happy. I'll give it I'll give it a 7, maybe a 7.25 to be a little bit more kind. I'll give it a solid 7. I think that's fair. It was not the best movie ever. It wasn't, but it was fun. It was entertaining, right? It wasn't bad, right? There was no part of it that was horrible. There was no garbage. There was no part where you were like, during it or whatever. I wasn't sitting there in the theater like, oh my God, or whatever, or falling asleep. None of that happened. So as far as I'm concerned, that's positive, right? Hey, I got nothing but positives to say about the whole thing. All of my complaints have to do with good things I enjoyed that I wish they would have done more with. That's all. That's it. It's that simple. I have no actual complaints.
Awesome. Thank you, gentlemen. Very nicely done. Very nice done. To wrap this up, I will give it a solid 10 out of 10. I loved it. I thought it was perfection. I enjoyed every aspect of this film. I had no problems with this film whatsoever. I thought it was a solid film because from get-go to end, it was nothing but action and comedy. And that's what I look for in entertainment. I'm not looking for Oscars. I'm not looking for anything that is so serious I need to know every single freaking detail. I like it to be entertaining, and that's what I look for, and this is what this did. So that's why I give it a giant 10 out of 10. And compared to some of the things that have come out in the recent years, I think this is a lot better than quite a few of those. I definitely feel you could see that The Rock put a lot of effort into getting this film done in a proper way. And I definitely think the writing was there. Like I said, Juan Collette-Serra, I think, is a phenomenal director. I thought he did a fantastic job. And I have never had any problems with any of his films. I've always enjoyed all of his films. And I thought he proved that with this film as well. And making it a superhero film, I thought was pretty damn good too as well. So yeah, giant 10 out of 10, people. All right. So that is it for the Black Adam review. To close it out, we'll plug what we would like to plug before we get out of here. So Kyle, would you like to plug anything, sir?
Just that if you want to check out a variety of fandoms, check out the Fandom Podcast Network at fpnet.podbean.com. Also our YouTube channel, search for the Fandom Podcast Network. We cover Star Trek, Marvel. We have a couple shows that look back into the 80s and 90s. Our Time Warp, where right now we're covering the films of 1983. We have what we call Couch Potato Theater. It's those movies where, you know what, you may own it on Blu-ray and DVD, VHS, whatever, But guess what? If it still pops up on cable, you're gonna probably stop there and finish watching the movie. It's those kind of movies. We have a lot of fun with it. We've got our Star Wars coverage. Of course, everybody's talking Andor right now. We just have a lot of fun over there. Again, Fandom Podcast Network, fpnet.podbean.com. You can also find it on all your major podcast catchers, whether it's iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, so many. Thank you guys for having me on. It's always a blast to come here and talk about what's going on in Marvel and whatever else is going on in fandom. And it's a fun and interesting conversation about Black Adam, because I think it's a very interesting time for the DC universe. And I think Black Adam really reflects what the unknown is of the DC universe going forward, because it's going to be very, very interesting to see how things play out over the next year with James Gunn in charge, and considering some of the projects that are still coming out and what it could hold for the future of Black Adam, because I really do feel that The Rock wants to continue with Black Adam, and I know James Gunn has a good relationship with The Rock and Amanda Waller as well. So, there we go.
All right, awesome. Thank you, Kyle. So definitely check out his podcast.
Just the Black Adam was definitely not at eternal levels. I can say that with confidence, and that's a good thing.
Yep. All right, so yeah, if you enjoy my moderating, people, definitely check out my solo content under Simon Like Shark. I do all kinds of great stuff over there: unboxings, parodies, reviews, all that kind of good stuff. Nothing about Brie Larson's ass is in my stuff, so don't worry about it. And, I don't talk anything about the Eternals either, because I could care less about Chloe Zhao. And, you can always enjoy my content over there, so definitely check it out. Summer Shark, you'll find me on all the different social media platforms: Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. YouTube is my main channel, so definitely check that out. TikTok, all that kind of good stuff. Is there anything else you'd like to say before we close, Mr. Jar Jar?
I want to shout out to Jar Jar, as always, wherever he's doing. I think I heard last time I checked, he's actually hanging out with White Vision together. And when they do the White Vision Disney Plus spinoff off of WandaVision, Jar Jar is going to be a part of it. It'll be Jar Jar and White Vision as a team up. So it's going to be great. I'm really looking forward to it. It was only a matter of time before they brought Jar Jar into the MCU. You had to. There was no way around it. It's a perfect connection, right? It makes perfect sense. No, I'm just kidding. It doesn't. It makes no sense at all. I hope it doesn't happen. But it would be neat, though. So shout out to Jar Jar, for being so outstanding. And shout out to Cyber Shark. Great moderating tonight, sir. Very well done. True believers, I love you guys. I know you miss me. As soon as you decide that, you'd like my presence back over there, in the show, I'd be happy to join you. And
we Jeff, we consider you, we need to. It's one of those super guest appearances, like the legendary Kevin Bacon.
Hey, listen, friggin', we talked about this last night. The fact that they dropped Kevin Bacon in that freaking Christmas special is awesome.
Oh yes, awesome. No, that is one of the. I cannot wait for that special. That is going to be great. And have either of you guys, just real quick, thought of the hilarity of the fact that James Gunn is the head of DC and is still going to have to promote Marvel projects through 2023?
It's awesome. It's awesome. But now I just want to plug us, the Bleeding Edge, and plug the fact that tomorrow, Sunday, right? Hopefully around 7 p.m., 7-ish Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific, we'll be doing our finale of House of the Dragon. Hopefully Cyber will be there. We'll have to see, but hopefully he'll be there. Finally, he's going to show up for the best part, the finale, right? Where we're going to have action. We're going to have dragons. Finally, we have some dragon on dragon action from what I hear. I don't know. I haven't watched it yet. But I probably going to have some dragon on dragon fighting and shit. Can't wait. It's going to be fun. So we're going to be doing the review of the finale of House of the Dragon tomorrow, our last one. So folks, if you haven't caught us yet, come check us out live, right? And shout out to everybody on all the different platforms we're on and whatnot and everything that we live on and whatnot. We love all of you. Shout out to Rumble. What up, Rumble? We're loving all you people around Rumble. Let's see more comments from you once in a while, other than the shitty ones. That's okay, though. We'll take anything we can get. And shout out to the fandom. Whatever fandom you're in, DC, Marvel, whatever. Fandom. We're all friends. We're all fans. And besides that, wish everybody the best. And good to see you, Kyle. It's been great having you on last couple months and whatnot and everything. I miss Kevin, and I wish him the well. I wish him the best.
It's great to be back on, especially because I know you're in the same neck of the woods I have, and it's been an interesting time thanks to our good friend Ian. But you know what? It's good that we're all here and all doing well and can be here on the podcast.
All right, folks, that is it for the MC Linen. We'll see you next time. Peace.
What?
Yeah.
Like you look